They say the universe has a sense of irony, that the cosmos itself enjoys watching mortals stumble through their brief lives, making choices that ripple across star systems without ever knowing the weight of what they've done. Some people call it fate. Others call it coincidence. But those who've lived long enough, who've seen empires rise and fall like waves on an infinite shore, they know the truth. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can reshape everything. This is a story about a man who stopped to help someone on the worst day of his life. A stranger broken and bleeding in an alley that civilized people walked past without a second glance. He had every reason to keep walking too. Every reason to protect himself, to mind his own business, to let someone else deal with the mess. He didn't. What he couldn't have known, what no human could have possibly understood in that moment, was that the woman he pulled from the shadows commanded fleets that could burn worlds. That her word could end civilizations or birth new ones. That she ruled over 1,000 planets spanning 73 star systems, each one bowing to her authority, each one protected by her iron will. But in that alley, on that rain-soaked street in a forgotten corner of Earth, she was just another person who needed help. And he was just a man who refused to walk away. The galaxy would never be the same. Marcus Chun had exactly $43 in his checking account, an eviction notice taped to his apartment door, and a rejection email from the last job he'd applied for still glowing on his phone screen. The rain had started an hour ago, the kind of cold October rain that seeped through cheap jackets and settled into your bones. He pulled his collar up and walked faster, trying to make it to the shelter before they stopped serving dinner. The shortcut through Hendricks Alley would save him 10 minutes. It was the kind of place most people avoided after dark, where the streetlights had been broken for months, and the city had stopped bothering to fix them. Marcus had grown up in neighborhoods like this. He knew the rules. Eyes forward, walk with purpose, don't look like prey. The alley smelled like garbage and rain and something else, something metallic that he didn't want to think about. He was halfway through when he heard it. A soft sound, barely audible over the rain. A whimper, maybe, or a cough. Marcus kept walking. Not your problem, he told himself. You've got your own troubles. The shelter closes in 40 minutes. Whatever's happening back there, someone else can deal with it. But his feet slowed anyway. Then stopped. Damn it, Marcus muttered. He turned around, squinting into the darkness. Hello? Someone there. Nothing. Just rain and shadows and the distant sound of traffic. He should leave. He should absolutely leave right now. Instead, he pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. That's when he saw her. She was crumpled against the wall about 20 feet in, her body folded at angles that didn't look natural. Blood, dark and viscous, pooled beneath her. Marcus's heart jumped into his throat. His first instinct was to run, to get as far away as possible before someone decided he was involved. Dead bodies meant police. Police meant questions. Questions meant complications he absolutely could not afford. But then she moved. Just slightly. Her hand twitched, fingers scraping against wet concrete. Jesus, Marcus breathed. He ran toward her, his shoes splashing through puddles. As he got closer, he could see more. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair plastered to her face. Her clothes were strange, made of some material that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light of his phone. There was blood everywhere, soaking through her shirt, running down her arms. Hey, Marcus said, dropping to his knees beside her. Hey, can you hear me? Her eyes opened. They were an impossible color, like amber with flecks of gold, and they focused on him with an intensity that made him freeze. She tried to speak, but only managed a wet, rattling sound. More blood bubbled at the corner of her mouth. Don't try to talk, Marcus said. His hands hovered over her, not sure where to touch, where he could help without making things worse. I'm calling an ambulance, okay? Just hold on. He pulled out his phone, his fingers shaking as he started to dial. But her hand shot out with surprising speed and grabbed his wrist. Her grip was weak, but insistent. She shook her head, her eyes pleading. No, hospital, she managed to whisper. Her voice was strange, accented in a way Marcus couldn't place. They'll find me. Who'll find you? Marcus asked. Look, you're hurt bad. You need help. I don't think, please. The word came out as barely a breath. Somewhere safe. Just tonight. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. Under the blood and the pain, there was something about her face. Dignified, maybe. Or maybe just desperate. The kind of desperation Marcus recognized because he'd seen it in his own mirror often enough. The desperation of someone who had nowhere else to turn. This was insane. Absolutely insane. Take a bleeding stranger back to his apartment? The apartment he was about to be evicted from? What if she died? What if whoever did this to her came looking? What if she was dangerous herself? But he thought about all the times he'd needed help and couldn't ask for it. All the times he'd been alone with no one to turn to. All the closed doors and turned backs. Okay, Marcus heard himself say. Okay, but we need to stop the bleeding first. Can you sit up? With his help, she managed to lean against the wall. Marcus pulled off his jacket and pressed it against the worst wound, a deep gash across her side. She gasped but didn't cry out. Up close, he could see that her injuries were consistent with knife wounds. Multiple stab wounds, actually. Someone had really tried to kill her. What happened? He asked, keeping pressure on the wound. Wrong place, she said, her voice a little stronger now. Wrong time. They didn't know who I was. Who are you? She looked at him for a long moment, her golden eyes searching his face. Does it matter? Guess not, Marcus said. Can you walk? I think so. It took 15 minutes to get her out of the alley. She leaned heavily on him, one arm draped over his shoulders, and every few steps she would make a small sound of pain that cut right through him. People passed them on the street. An elderly couple, a man in a business suit, a group of teenagers. Every single one of them looked away, crossed the street, acted like they didn't see two people struggling through the rain. Marcus's apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned 10 years ago. The elevator hadn't worked since he moved in. By the time they reached his door, they were both exhausted. The woman was barely conscious, her face paper white except for the blood. Almost there, Marcus said, fumbling for his keys. Just hold on. The apartment was exactly what you'd expect for someone in Marcus's situation. One room that served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. A bathroom with a door that didn't close all the way. Furniture from thrift stores and curbs. But it was dry and it was warm, and right now that was enough. Marcus helped her to the bed, the only real piece of furniture he owned. She collapsed onto it with a grateful sigh. He grabbed every towel he owned and spread them under her to protect the mattress. I need to see how bad it is, Marcus said. Your shirt. I need to do it, she said. The material of her clothes was like nothing Marcus had ever touched. It felt like silk, but stronger, and it seemed to resist tearing until he found the seams. Underneath, the wounds were bad. 3 deep stab wounds, 1 across her ribs, 2 in her side. But they'd stopped bleeding as heavily. In fact, as Marcus watched, they seemed to be closing. Slowly, impossibly slowly, but definitely knitting back together. What the hell? Marcus breathed. Enhanced healing, the woman said. Her eyes were closed now. Standard, for my position. I'll be fine. Just need time. Your position? What position? Who are you? But she was already unconscious, her breathing deep and steady. Marcus sat back on his heels and stared at her. Enhanced healing. Clothes made of impossible material. Someone trying to kill her. What had he just brought into his home? For a long moment, he considered calling the police anyway. This was way beyond him. Way beyond anything he knew how to handle. But he thought about the look in her eyes when she'd grabbed his wrist. That pleading desperation. And he thought about what she'd said. They'll find me. Who the hell are you? Marcus asked the unconscious woman. She didn't answer. The rain continued to hammer against the window. Marcus pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down to wait. His stomach growled, reminding him that he'd missed dinner. His phone buzzed with a text from his landlord, probably about the rent. Outside, somewhere in the city, someone was looking for the woman bleeding in his bed. Marcus Chun had made a lot of questionable decisions in his 32 years. This might be the worst one yet. Or maybe, somehow, it might be the best. Time would tell. Time, and whatever came through his door when the sun came up. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he watched the woman breathe, watched the impossible way her wounds slowly healed, and wondered what he'd gotten himself into. Around 3 in the morning, she started talking in her sleep. Words in a language Marcus didn't recognize, lilting and complex. She seemed to be giving orders, her tone sharp even in unconsciousness. Once, she said something that sounded like a name, repeated it 3 times with increasing urgency. Marcus got up and found his first aid kit, the cheap one from the dollar store with a few bandages and some expired aspirin. It was laughably inadequate, but he cleaned the wounds as best he could and covered them with gauze. Her skin was warm to the touch, but not feverish. If anything, she seemed to be getting better by the hour. By the time pale light started seeping through the window, the worst of the wounds had closed to pink scars. It should have been impossible. It was impossible. But Marcus had seen impossible things before in his own way. He'd seen people survive things that should have killed them. He'd seen hope in places where it shouldn't exist. Maybe this was just another kind of impossible. The woman's eyes opened. She looked at the ceiling for a moment, then turned her head to face Marcus. "You stayed," she said. Her voice was stronger now, clearer. "Didn't seem right to leave," Marcus said. "How do you feel?" "Like I was stabbed." She tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "But better. Much better, thanks to you." "Those wounds," Marcus said. "They're almost healed." "That's not normal." "No," she agreed. "It's not." She sat up slowly, testing her body. "My name is Catherine. I owe you a debt I can never repay, Marcus Chun. I didn't tell you my name." "You're male," Catherine said, nodding toward the small table by the door where a few envelopes sat. "I saw it while you were helping me. I'm observant, even when I'm dying. Are you going to tell me who you are? Really, I mean." Catherine looked at him for a long moment. "Would you believe me if I told you?" "Try me. After last night, I think I can believe pretty much anything." "I'm not from Earth," Catherine said simply. "I'm from a world called Telvara Prime, about 800 light-years from here. I rule the Telvaran Ascendancy, which consists of 1,047 colonized worlds, 73 star systems, and approximately 6 trillion citizens." Marcus stared at her. Then he laughed. He couldn't help it. The laugh turned into a cough, then back into a laugh. "Okay," he said when he could breathe again. "Okay, you're messing with me. That's fine. You don't want to tell me. That's your business." "I'm not joking," Catherine said. Her tone was matter-of-fact, almost bored. "I came to Earth on a diplomatic mission. Secret negotiations with your world leaders about first contact protocols. My security detail was supposed to maintain cover by staying at a distance. Someone found out who I was, or what I represented at least. 3 assailants with magnetic knives, designed to disrupt energy shields. They jumped me when I took a walk to clear my head. I killed 2 of them, but the third got away after wounding me. I ran until I couldn't run anymore, and that's when you found me." Marcus's laughter died. The way she said it, the complete lack of emotion or drama, it sounded true. It sounded like someone reporting facts. "You're serious?" "Completely." "Prove it." Catherine held up her hand. Her fingers began to glow, a soft blue light that grew brighter until Marcus had to squint. Then, she curled her hand into a fist, and the light condensed into a sphere that floated above her palm. It rotated slowly, and inside it Marcus could see what looked like stars, planets, entire solar systems in miniature. "This is the Telvaran Ascendancy," Catherine said. "Everything I rule. Everything I'm responsible for." She closed her hand, and the light vanished. "Does that prove enough?" Marcus's mouth was dry. "Holy shit. Indeed. So what does that make me?" "The guy who saved the alien queen." "Empress, technically," Catherine said. "And yes, essentially. Those saved might be strong. I would have healed eventually. You gave me a safe place to do it, which is perhaps more valuable. Why didn't your people come looking for you?" "They will, once they realize I'm missing. But I left my communicator behind. I wanted privacy for my walk, which was spectacularly foolish in retrospect. My head of security is probably tearing the city apart looking for me right now. He'll find me by midday, I expect. The tracking implant in my body will lead him here." "Tracking implant," Marcus repeated. "Of course. Why not?" "You don't seem afraid," Catherine observed. "Should I be? Most people would be. Most people would be terrified, actually." Marcus shrugged. "I've been homeless. I've slept in places where people got killed for their shoes. I've been hungry enough that I stole food and didn't feel bad about it. Scary is relative, you know? You bleed like everyone else. You hurt like everyone else. Being from space doesn't make you a monster." Catherine smiled, and this time it was real. "You're an unusual man, Marcus Chun." That's what my ex-wife used to say, right before she left. She was a fool. She was practical. I'm not good at keeping jobs. Not good at keeping anything, really. And yet you kept me alive last night. That was different. How? Marcus thought about it. You needed help. That's all. Someone needed help, and I was there. Doesn't matter if you're from Earth or Alpha Centauri or wherever. Helping is helping. Catherine was quiet for a moment. My people have studied Earth for decades. We've watched your species, analyzed your cultures, tried to understand what makes humans tick. Most of my advisors think you're dangerous. Too violent, too short-sighted, too prone to conflict. They think first contact would be a disaster. They might be right. Perhaps. But then, I meet someone like you. Someone who has every reason to be bitter and self-interested. And you help a stranger at great personal risk. It makes me think my advisors might not have the complete picture. One guy doesn't represent everybody, Marcus said. No, but everyone is made of individuals. Understanding the whole means understanding the parts. Before Marcus could respond, there was a sound outside. Not footsteps, but something else, a kind of thrumming vibration that made the windows rattle. Catherine's head snapped toward the sound. They're here, she said. Your people. Yes. Stand behind me, Marcus. They'll be cautious, probably aggressive. You're an unknown element. Marcus stood up as the thrumming grew louder. The walls themselves seemed to shake. Then, impossibly, 3 figures materialized in the middle of his apartment. Just appeared out of nowhere, shimmering into existence like they were made of light that suddenly became solid. They were tall, easily 7 feet each, dressed in armor that looked like liquid metal. Their faces were covered by helmets with no visible eye slits. And each of them held a weapon, something that glowed with the same blue light Catherine had created. The weapons were pointed directly at Marcus. Stand down, Catherine commanded. Her voice was completely different now. Hard. Absolute. The voice of someone used to being obeyed without question. Immediately, the 3 figures froze. Then, in perfect unison, they lowered their weapons and dropped to one knee. Empress, the center figure said. His voice was deep, filtered through the helmet. We detected your distress signal termination and traced your implant. What are your orders? First, stand, Catherine said. You're making my host uncomfortable. They stood, but their weapons remained ready, their attention never leaving Marcus. This is Marcus Chun, Catherine continued. He saved my life last night when I was ambushed. He gave me shelter and asked for nothing in return. He is under my personal protection. If any harm comes to him, from anyone in my service or otherwise, I will consider it a personal attack. Is that understood? Yes, Empress, all 3 said together. Good. Now tell me what happened after I went missing. The center figure, whom Marcus assumed was their leader, stepped forward. We lost contact with you at 1900 hours local time. Full search protocols were enacted immediately. We've locked down the city and interrogated 17 suspects. 2 confessed to being part of an assassination plot funded by the Calvex Union. We've retrieved the bodies of the 2 assailants you killed. The 3rd escaped, but we have agents tracking him. The Calvex Union, Catherine said, and there was something dark in her voice. I should have known. Who are they? Marcus asked. Rivals, Catherine said shortly. An alliance of systems that resent our dominance. This was a message, a statement that they could reach me even here, on a supposedly neutral world. What will you do? What I must, Catherine said. She looked at the lead figure. Commander Thale, return to the ship. Tell the council I'm safe, and will return within the hour. Also, have our intelligence division compile everything they have on the Calvex Union's current operations. This cannot go unanswered. As you command, Empress. The 3 figures began to shimmer again, preparing to teleport. But Catherine held up a hand. Wait. One more thing. Commander, I want you to run a full background check on Marcus Chun. Everything. And when you're done, I want you to compile a list of job openings in our Earth operations. Management level. Marcus's head snapped toward her. What? What? Because you're unemployed and about to be evicted, Catherine said simply. I pay my debts, Marcus. You saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you have a roof over your head and food in your stomach. I don't need charity. This isn't charity. This is restitution. There's a difference. Empress, Commander Thale said, his voice careful. Recruiting a human for off-world operations would require extensive vetting and approval from the council. Then, I suppose it's fortunate that I am the council's chair, Catherine said. You have your orders, Commander. The three figures shimmered and vanished, leaving Marcus and Catherine alone in the apartment again. The sudden silence was jarring. You can't just give me a job, Marcus said. I can do whatever I want, Catherine replied. That's rather the point of being Empress. That's not what I meant. I mean, you don't know me. I could be terrible at whatever job you have in mind. You saved my life despite having every reason not to. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Skills can be taught. Integrity can't. I'm not looking for a handout. And I'm not offering one. I'm offering an opportunity. What you do with it is up to you. Catherine walked to the window and looked out at the city. I'll be gone within the hour, Marcus. Back to my ship, back to my duties. I have a war to prevent and 1,000 worlds to govern. But before I go, I want to give you something. Not because I pity you, but because you remind me why I do what I do. What do you mean? I rule an empire, Marcus. 6 trillion people look to me for guidance, for protection, for justice. Sometimes I forget that all those people are individuals with their own struggles, their own dignity. Sometimes the numbers become too large, too abstract. But you, bleeding and broken in that alley, you saw another person who needed help. Not a statistic, not a problem to be solved. A person. That's what we should all strive for, no matter how powerful we become. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. Catherine turned from the window and smiled at him. My people will contact you in the next few days. If you choose to accept our offer, you'll be trained, equipped, and given a position that will use your talents. If you decline, no hard feelings. But either way, your rent is paid for the next year, and there's 50,000 credits in your account. Earth currency, not Telverin. I can't accept that. You can and you will. Consider it payment for medical services rendered. Before Marcus could argue further, the air in front of Catherine shimmered. A platform of light appeared beneath her feet. She looked at Marcus one last time. Thank you, Marcus-chun, for your kindness, for your humanity, for reminding me why some species are worth believing in. Wait, Marcus said. Will I see you again? Perhaps, Catherine said. The universe is vast, but not infinite. Our paths may cross again. She smiled. And, if they do, I hope you'll join me for a drink. I find I owe you at least that much. Then, she was gone, vanished in a flash of light that left spots dancing in Marcus's vision. The apartment was quiet again. Empty. Marcus stood there for a long moment, trying to process everything that had just happened. Then, he checked his phone. There was a notification from his bank. A deposit. $50,000 with a note. Medical consultation fee. Thank you. K. Marcus sat down heavily on the bed. The sheets still had blood on them. Proof that last night had actually happened. That he hadn't dreamed the whole impossible thing. His phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus answered it. Mr. Chun. A woman's voice, professional and crisp. This is Diana Kowalski from Telverin Holdings, Earth Operations Division. I'm calling to discuss a potential employment opportunity. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Marcus looked around his tiny apartment. At the eviction notice still on the table. At the bloodstained sheets. At the window where an empress from the stars had stood just moments before. Yeah, Marcus said. I have time. As he listened to Diana Kowalski outline a job that sounded impossible, with a salary that seemed fictional, Marcus thought about the woman in the alley. How easily he could have walked past. How close he'd come to doing exactly that. Sometimes, he realized, the smallest choices had the biggest consequences. Sometimes helping a stranger meant more than you could ever imagine. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds. And Marcus Chen's life, without him fully understanding it yet, had just changed forever. All because he'd been too stubborn to walk away from someone who needed help. Sometimes, that's all it takes. One person, one choice, one moment of compassion in a cold world. Everything else flows from there.